I want to start this video differently than how I actually planned it because something happened to me this week at work and I've been sitting with it. And then I realized that this is the most honest version of everything that I teach in the series. So I'm going to tell you what happened, but I first want to tell you that, and I do want to be clear, this is not about the people involved. And it's not even about the situation. It's about what came up for me, what came up in me. And I think that you might recognize it. I work 4 days on, 4 days off. It's a pattern it's our rostered shift, okay? And this week, so during the shift, I found myself a little bit under pressure. I thought I was getting a bit of support and that someone was coming to help on certain, basically, shift. It was certain things that I was doing. I don't want to go into too much detail. Okay, you understand that. So based on this, the person who I thought was coming didn't come. That's okay. Then someone else said that they were coming. And I suppose that was a bit of a relief for me because I felt a big weight lift off my shoulders. And then all of a sudden, again, it got pulled back. And something in me went into the spiral. And 110 thoughts went round my mind all at once. That's it, I'm done, I'm leaving, I'm fed up. Can't do it anymore. You know, the ones that go around your head, can't help it, just the way it is. We all do it. Now, don't get me wrong, I did get the work done. I knew I would, but it's still that feeling within you, okay? And what I noticed, even right in the middle of it, is that the spiral wasn't actually about the work. And it wasn't, and like I said to you at the beginning, it was not about the people either. It was about the feeling. And this feeling is something that came up in me. It's an old pattern that was happening within me. So it was very familiar. Yeah. Okay, so what was the feeling for me? And I'm going to be very vulnerable. The feeling for me was being taken advantage of and decisions being made on my behalf. It's been a pattern in my life, and I've only realised that over the last while, but it came up more recently over the weekend. So I basically had to absorb all that because saying no for me and pushing back or making a different choice felt unsafe. It wasn't uncomfortable or unsafe like a threat, but it was like, I've been here before, many times before, and yes, they've been in different situations, but all relate back to the same things, and it's happened with different people. So that's what I'm saying. It's not about the people, it's about what happened with me. So this basically told me everything I needed to know. It's not about the work, like I said, it's a pattern and it's mine. It's mine. What's the first thing I did? And this is something that I want to talk about because I don't think we say it enough, is that I had to talk to somebody. I had to get out of my system. So what we normally do is we normally vent and go toxic with our vulnerability and start blaming everybody else. But because I recognized it was a pattern within me, I felt, well, you do have to talk to somebody, but I feel like you need to talk to somebody who is trusted, somebody that you trust to listen and not take anywhere else. This is the thing about this work, right? It can be very internal and solitary. And it can, because like you feel like you're on your own most of the time when things like this happen. But sometimes you need a witness. And what that means to me is that this is somebody who will hold space without judgment. This is somebody who will hold space just to let you have your say and just get out of your system, out of your body. And you want that person to be somebody who doesn't try to fix you. So won't tell you what to do around the situation, or won't tell you that you're wrong or you're right, or like anything like that. You just need somebody who'll be the witness, who'll listen. Okay. And sometimes it's good for them to reflect back what they hear without giving judgment. And I'll tell you why, because sometimes the emotion is too loud to process inside your own head. It's got to move through your body first. Okay. So, like I said, talking and not sort of like venting to everyone or to anyone who listens, because that's just basically, like I said, being toxic, but basically sharing with somebody who you trust. Okay. So I also released. Now we can only release emotions. We can't let go of we let go of people, places, situations, but we can only release emotions. So what happens with me is when I'm releasing emotions, I cry. That is my emotions. Does that mean I'm upset? No. It just means that I'm releasing whatever it was in my body. Because my body, if I hold it in my body, that's where dis-ease comes in, aches, pains, you name it, okay? So you've got to be able to release that emotion. So I was crying that morning. Doesn't look very good when you're crying, especially when you're in work and there's a lot of people around and you're like, because people do take things up the wrong way and you sort of like have to explain yourself, but that's okay. I'm okay to do that. That's fine by me. But what's more important is what you need to really realize is that weakness, that release isn't weakness. That's what I need to say. That release isn't weakness. It's not about you being unable to cope. And it's basically your nervous system is doing exactly what it was supposed to do. Okay. It's just discharging everything that it's holding on to. That's what your nervous system needs to do. Okay. We have to get it out of our body somehow. Yes, my release is crying, but it's also looking at myself in the mirror and basically being honest with what I see back. And that's where I realized that that's what was happening for me, is the feeling of being taken advantage of, the feeling of decisions being made on my behalf, instead of allowing me to make my decisions. But it's the pattern, like I said, that I had been holding on to. Different situations, different people. So what that leads to is realizing that I'm a people pleaser. It was hard for me to say no, because I always felt it was easier to say yes because I didn't want to let people down. Okay. And if I ever said no, bad things could happen. And I don't mean really bad things, but possibly. You just don't know. So if I don't absorb what I seen in the mirror, and or like you can journal, you just need to get out of you. Okay. Most mirror work is the most effective that I find. But if I don't absorb this, and if I don't keep things flowing, if I just hold on to it, like I said, there are consequences. So this belief that I had isn't new. The belief has been with me, like I said, for a very long time. And the pattern of allowing more than is right for me right now, of prioritizing everyone else's ease over my own feelings or my own well-being, that pattern didn't start in my workplace, in this workplace I'm in now. That just lit a match underneath it. I made the flame go higher. It's what happened. It was a trigger for me. So this is what I want you to sort of like hear right now. It's not about the people who triggered me or triggered the situation or triggered the belief, whatever you want to call it. It's like they were just the most recent version of a dynamic that my nervous system already knew very well. The work isn't to be angry at them, because that's just like a blame game. The work is to get curious about why this particular thing has so much charge for me. So when I got honest with myself, what I found underneath the anger or the frustration and the spiral, and then the 110 thoughts I had, was this belief that I'd been running quietly for years and years. And it's like my safety depends on other people's approval. That if I take up too much space, if I make my own needs known, if I say this is not okay, I become a problem. And problems get pushed out. So I accommodate, I absorb, I people please. And not because I'm a pushover, because I'm not, but because my nervous system level, saying no has historically felt like a threat to my belonging, to my place. And belonging for any of us goes right back to survival. So this is what the spiral was actually about. Not the work situation, not the specific people, but an old pattern doing what old patterns do. It's finding the nearest available situation and running through it again. And possibly again. And possibly again. The spiral. Now, the way I see this, sometimes these things do not solve themselves straight away, because sometimes you're not put in a position to be able to have a conversation about it right straight away. But I do feel, especially for myself, there does need to be some sort of boundary set. And that is on me. That's not on anyone else. And I have to be really honest about that, is because this work isn't tidy. It's not like mirror work done, mirror work done. It's not like that, because life isn't like that. Life isn't a straight line. Life is like it's not even an up line. It's a woo, all over the place. So you don't do the inner work. So like I said, the mirror work, the journaling, the meditating, whatever it is, and it resolves itself neatly that day. The thing is, I know what needs to happen. And more importantly, I know why I've been avoiding it. Not always easy, but that changes everything about how I can approach it when the moment comes. So I'm not going into it basically to people please or to please anyone else. I'm basically going into it to stay safe within myself. And this is the whole point of week 4, because it's warm. Because we spent 3 weeks talking about the grow phase of Grow, Align, Prosper. So that's recognizing the patterns, and the align phase, which is what inner safety actually is. And now I want to talk about what becomes different when you're operating from that foundation. And what I just walked through is basically the clearest example that I can give you. A year ago, or possibly a bit longer, I probably would have absorbed what happened at not just this work, any work that I've been in, and said nothing. I said nothing. And I would have gone home exhausted and convinced myself that everything was okay. And I would have replayed that same situation over and over and over again for days and days and days, keeping me up at night and things like that. And I would have done that in the past without identifying what was actually it was all about. But what's different now is that I didn't spiral. Well, I did a little bit, but what the difference is that I noticed the spiral. That's the difference. So I went into the spiral. I noticed the spiral because I observed where I was in myself, and I named it. I got the support by talking out what I needed to speak out. I turned inwards instead of outwards. Like, instead of the blame, I turned inwards because everything happens for you. And I got clear on what the situation was that was triggering within me. And then I got clear about what the situation actually was. So I sort of like have to name what the situation is, but figure out that it's come from within me. I hope you understand what I'm saying. Okay, so there's that gap in between. So it's in between the trigger and the truth. Okay, so that's where the work lives, is that gap. So when your nervous system basically has a baseline of safety, you don't stop getting triggered because it's easier not to get triggered when you do the inner work. Don't get me wrong, but there will always, because we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. There will be times when you get triggered because healing is an ongoing journey. It's a healing. You're not just healed. It doesn't work like that. There may be a specific point in your life where there's something that you've worked on and it hasn't come back because you've grown more, but there'll always be something that you will get triggered on, which you will always need to come back to. I'm just saying that. And basically, that's because, like I said, nobody's perfect and life still happens. You're still a human being. And people can still make decisions that can affect you. Oh gosh, I'd love to go into a big thing, not a rant, but I'd love to go into a big thing now because this came up for me a few months back about I needed to go back and watch Back to the Future. And that's what brought it up, because in that, and I'll do it very quickly, is that Back to the Future, the first one, Marty goes off in a time thing, but he has to go back. When he made a choice within that, going to the past, he made a choice within that past that affected his future because he pushed his dad of the past out of the way, and that made their future different. Okay, so yeah, it's a big whole thing. Go watch it. Okay, so it's like, just to let you know, that's how I came up with the, like, realizing that, like, choices that are made on my behalf is not to do with me. Only my reaction and my feelings towards what they do or say is on me. And I think I need to get that over, the point across. It's like, things will still go wrong. People will still make decisions on your behalf, but how you react to it and how you feel about that, if you get triggered, is how you then overcome it, because that's on you. Okay. So you've got to realize that you've got something now that's available to you that you didn't before. You can pause inside the spiral. When you observe and realize what's going on, you can take that pause and realize that you do not need to be consumed by it. Okay, you can ask the question, is this about now, or is this about an older version of me? That's all you need to do. Is it about now or an older version of me? And most of the time, it's about an older version of you. Okay. Like I said, most of the time it comes from childhood, but can still come from yesterday, the day before, and like a month ago. Happens. So the decisions, though, that you make from that place can be completely different to what you made like 10 years ago, because you're more aware, you're more observant about what's gone on. And they come from what's true for you right now, not from the fear of what happens if you speak up, or not from the need to keep the peace at the cost of your own, because it's all about your inner peace. It's your nervous system that you're needing to look after. So that's what living from safety looks like. It's not the absence of difficulty, because life is still going to move on, but it's the presence that's happening within yourself. So it's yourself, what's happening within. Okay. I want to say one more thing, because I think this is the part that's hardest to, this is the part that's hardest to believe when you're still in the middle of that spiral or in the middle of the pattern. When you start to do this work and you do it consistently, you can start catching the spiral earlier. You name it, as in name the pattern, You get clear on what's yours and not yours. And life generally starts to feel different. See, what you've got to realize is like when you name the pattern doesn't mean you have to relive the situation. That's a different thing altogether. You have to name the pattern. So what you've got to realize is that like things don't change overnight. Circumstances can't change overnight, and they don't always change overnight. So what happened at the weekend for me may happen again, but it's how I deal with it this time around. And this will help because you're going to stop using so much energy absorbing things that you should be setting down, things that are not yours. Okay. You can stop carrying the weight of what other people, it's like other people's weight to carry. It's not yours to carry for yourself. You need to stop making yourself smaller. I'm talking to myself as well, because this isn't the situation that was happening for me. But in that space, the energy that like you're going into surviving, it starts going somewhere else. Okay, so it starts going into the things that actually matter for you. It starts going into the work that you came here to do. It starts going into relationships that are honest and spacious rather than flipping, I don't know, performed and exhausting. That's what prosper is in the GAP method. Not achievement, not hustle, but the availability to own your own life. And you get there not by getting everything right, but by willing to look honestly at what comes up, get support when you need it, and choose yourself. And even when that's the hardest thing to do. If any of this landed for you, you know, you recognize the pattern or the spiral or the people pleasing that looks like keeping the space, then the inner safety reset is the place to start. It has an emotional pattern audit that helps you see exactly what I was describing today. The patterns that show up most consistently for you, and a belief to emotion worksheet that helps you to trace the feeling back to the belief underneath it. It is free and there's a link in the description. And every Wednesday I send a letter out on Substack. It's called the Gap Journal. This week's letter is going to be a more personal version of what I've shared here. So if you want that, it's linked as well in the description below. Next Tuesday, we're going into the perception principle. This is why changing your thoughts isn't enough and what actually has to change for things to shift at the level of what you experience. I'll see you next week.